My name is Michael. I'm a DevOps architect in Sopra Steria. And I'm going to show you how we were bad at handling the backup on Kubernetes. Because as soon as you start to run some workload on Kubernetes in production, the question is, how do you manage the backup? And we wanted to be honest with you, we wanted to implement something quick and dirty to have it working. But quickly, we meet some limit. And what I want to show you is like a journey of the backup process in Kubernetes. And we try plenty things, many bad. And the goal here is just to show them and why you should not do them, by the way. So Sopra Steria is a digital and service transformation company. It's similar to some other company that you probably know, like Capgemini, Accenture. We have a lot of big customers like banking, government, and so on. And Kubernetes was the tool that we dreamed for long years without having it. Because we have some contract with many apps, and we often have to resuscitate them. Because we are big, the size matter. We can reduce the cost because we are big. And of course, we have all the benefit of the DevOps process. And for other reasons, like the ability to share the tool between teams, Kubernetes was a great fit. So the adoption of Kubernetes in our company is kind of recent. It's 2 years, but it's really accelerating. And we are putting a lot of things on Kubernetes, especially our env dev, but our production are also going to Kubernetes. So mainly we use OpenShift, which is a Kubernetes distribution of Red Hat. We do Kubernetes, we do OpenShift on AWS, on-premise, and also on Azure. We use EBS, GlusterFS, Safe. We run some workload like MongoDB, Postgre, MySQL, Oracle, Elasticsearch. And usually our cluster is about 50 nodes, so they are small cluster. But we are not going right now on the very big cluster like 2,000 nodes. I think we're not completely ready for that. So this is the pyramid of data, and it's easy to understand. At the lower layer, you have all the file system of the physical layer. A layer above, you have the etcd, which is describing your whole cluster. And then, at a level, again, higher, you have the namespace, the resource, the secret, the deployment config, the service, and so on. And at the end, the business data, the content of the database. So the question that I'm going to ask you, in this pyramid, what are you going to save? What do you want to save? Do you want to do your saving here, or do you want to do the saving at the top of them? So we went to the conclusion that usually we just don't want to save this layer. It's useless most of the time. So our first approach was what I call the old way. We save the bottom of the pyramid. So what we did, we built some bash script, a very dirty bash script with AWS CLI, and we used the AWS API, and we just did the snapshot on the set of volumes that AWS was managing. So it's really easy. The advantage of that is really easy. You just have to save the volume. Simple as that. You have a bunch of EBS and you just make a snapshot. But to have it working, you have one thing to do to make sure it's consistent. You have to stop the cluster. So I don't know if you realize the consequences of this. Stopping a whole Kubernetes cluster of 50 nodes, or sometimes bigger, is dangerous. You're not 100% sure that everything is restarting, and you're going to have some serious SLA problem, because some of our cluster are multi-tenant cluster with many customers coming from different countries, and they don't accept the application stop. I don't know, something like midnight in France. Midnight in France is okay, but midnight in France, it could be 10 o'clock in USA. And in USA, they don't want to have the cluster stop at 10 o'clock. So this solution, we had to get rid of it. Another thing that didn't work is it was extremely hard to rebuild the complete cluster, because the number of nodes were always changing and the volume attachment were always changing. So it was a real challenge to rebuild that. So we give up this solution. Then we went to another solution, which was using Lambda. Everybody know what Lambda is. I guess you know. It's a way to use, to execute code, but on the AWS infrastructure. Usually you write it in Python language, and then it do exactly the same thing, but only on certain type of volume. We were able to identify which volume, which EBS we wanted to save. So we did that, using the tags to choose the EBS properly. And we were happy because the Lambda is not a SPOF, it's not a single point of failure. And it worked well, but it just worked on AWS. We didn't have solution for on-premise, and it was not the same solution for Azure. The problem also was the fact that some databases are not supporting very well hot snapshot. If you do a hot snapshot on a database EBS, then how are you sure that this database is going to restart in a good way? Because there could be some read-write operation on the EBS, and when you do the hot snapshot, you're not 100% sure that you are in a consistent state and sure to restart. I must say that in some of our experience, like MySQL, we never meet any problem. But for an Elasticsearch cluster, doing a hot snapshot could be sometimes very, very dangerous. So one solution was to stop the database and then doing the hot snapshot. But then the consequences was on the Lambda expression. We had to orchestrate the workload on the Kubernetes cluster to say, okay, I stop the database, I do the snapshot, and then I restart the database. But then your code, your Lambda code, is extremely spaghetti. It becomes hard to do something clean with that. And of course, we still have the problem of multi-tenancy because we have to do that for everybody. Pardon. So we try something else again. Then I'm not completely proud of this one. This one was just ask every team to do what we call a port forward. I think everybody knows what's a port forward. It's when you're doing a port forward on Kubernetes, it lets you access the service in localhost. So every team can manage its own cron server, and in the bash, the bash say, okay, do a port forward and use utilitary like a pgdump and do your backup stuff. But then the cron server become the SPOF, because if the cron doesn't work, the cron server stops to work, then your snapshots are not going to be saved properly. They are going to be stopped to be produced. The port forwarding stuff was fragile, of course, and you have two systems to manage. Now you have the Cube system and you have the cron server system. And especially you have some secret sharing challenge to manage, because all the secrets that are on the server, on the Kubernetes, has to be reported to the cron server. And it's hard also to share the receipt, the blueprint of doing a snapshot. So we tried something that was not too bad, was doing a cron job. A cron job is like a cron, but you execute it on Kubernetes. So you build an image with the client for the database, like pgdump, mongodump, and that thing, and then you run the cron job with that. And then you solve the problem of the secret sharing, because usually the cron job is executed on the same namespace than the application, than the database. Yes. And there was no SPOF, because you execute that on Kubernetes, so Kubernetes is not a SPOF. But we still had some issue. It was very hard to monitor for compliance, so it's hard to know who's doing its backup properly and who's not doing. We still have a lot of maintenance of the code, and it was hard to get it right, to know, because you still have to implement all the snapshot retention policy, and that could be a challenge as well. So we try Kanister. We start to evaluate Kanister. Kanister is a Kubernetes native data management framework, so it lets you share some receipt, some blueprint of how you save a database. And then you can share it across different teams, across different namespace, but the main issue here was to share the secret. So I'm running I see that I'm running out of time, so I just go to my last stop. So our last stop now is on evaluating a commercial product specialized on the snapshot, which is Kasten. And it may fit a lot of our requirements, like it's easy to use because there is a very reactive and efficient GUI that lets you see your whole backup. It proposes you some good solution for your retention policy, for your encryption. And it captures not only the database, but it also captures all the Kubernetes resources. So this is our last stop for the moment. And I have finished my journey.
Thank you, Michael.